Hey everyone, welcome back to another monthly reading wrap-up. This is an exciting wrap-up because it's our first wrap-up of 2024. So obviously I'll be recapping all the books I read in January, what I thought of them, what I rated them. But first, I'm gonna get to my stats for the month. I read a total of 5 books and 5 different genres. Some of them overlap, but really no 2 books that I read can fit in the same category. One was a classic literature, one was a contemporary romance, one thriller, and then one, I consider it to be like a drama contemporary fiction, but it is technically classified as a romance. I don't necessarily agree, and I'll explain why when we get to that book. And then also one adult fantasy romance. I did also start on a YA mystery, but I didn't finish it until February, so I'm not counting that in this recap or in any of the stats. Those 5 books amount to 2,533 pages. 2 of these reads were 5 stars. So I feel like January was an awesome way to start out the year. Now let's get into what the books are and what I thought of them. Okay, so one of my goals for 2024 was to read more classics. I did want to push myself out of my comfort zone and read some classics because I feel like there's so many classics that I want to read and just never have had the chance to. So I'm pushing myself to do that this year, and I started off with Little Women. And first of all, can we talk about how beautiful this edition is? I found this in Barnes & Noble, and the second I saw it, I knew I had to get it, just simply for how beautiful this book is. And the gold foiling on the pages is stunning, and the back is so cute too because it has little portraits of all of the 4 girls. This book is by Louisa May Alcott, and I actually have seen the film adaptation of this, whatever the most recent one is, and absolutely fell in love with the story and decided this one would be a good one to start with because I wasn't really sure what to expect with the writing because it was written quite a while ago. But since I knew I enjoyed the movie and kind of had an idea of what was going on with the plot, I figured this would be a great classic to start with just because it would be a little easier to get into. Did do most of this as an audio listen, one because it's a big book and like I said, it's so beautiful that I didn't want to mess it up by constantly carrying around and having it open, but also because like I said, I didn't really know what to expect with the writing style, and doing the audio kind of just immersed me into the story more. And oh my gosh, I loved this book. I was not expecting to love a classic so much. I figured I would like the story because I had liked the movie, but wow, I mean, I absolutely fell in love with the story and all of these characters. It's beautifully written and the messages in it are amazing, and I was just so shocked how much it emotionally impacted me. Highly recommend reading this, especially if you're like me and you aren't really well versed in classics and you're looking for a good place to start. I think this is a great one. I gave it 5 stars if you can't tell by my description of it. The second book I read this year was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I don't currently have the copy with me because I actually convinced my roommate to read it, so she has the copy right now. Before I read this book, I had only read one other book by Abby Jimenez, and that was Yours Truly, which oddly enough, I've learned that I was supposed to read Part of Your World first, then Yours Truly, and I did the opposite. I loved it. It was so cute and so wholesome. It's basically about Alexis and Daniel. Alexis is a doctor in the big city. She's very like city girl vibes, but she's recently out of a long-term relationship and she's kind of struggling with that, and she has like a lot of weight on her shoulders in the medical world because her parents have very high expectations of her. And then Daniel lives in a really small town. He does so much stuff for this small town. Everyone is friends with him, everyone loves him there, and he just really loves that town. Basically, Alexis somehow ends up stranded in this small town. They meet on a chance encounter and it goes from there. I'm not going to explain anymore, but yeah, it's basically like a rom-com in its truest form. So adorable. I absolutely loved it. Sometimes I struggle reading contemporary romances because if they start to feel cheesy or like too much like a Hallmark movie, I just kind of get the ick and I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy the characters, but this book was not like that at all. Made me feel warm and happy, and it was so wholesome and cute. And one thing I really like that Abby Jimenez does with her books is even though they're so cute and wholesome, they do still deal with serious topics and the characters are flawed, and I really appreciate that. And reading characters that feel real, and when characters go through very real experiences, I feel a lot more connected to the book, so I enjoyed that about it a lot. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed Yours Truly, but I still loved it, and I will be reading all of her other books in the future. I can't remember if I initially rated it 4 stars or 4.5 stars, but I am gonna stick with a 4-star just because I'm not thinking about it a whole bunch. It was a quick and easy read and it just made me happy, but it's not something I'm like constantly thinking about. Moving on to the thriller I read this month, I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden, and she's quickly becoming one of those authors that if I'm in a slump or I don't know what I want to read, I can automatically pick up one of her books and know that I'm probably going to enjoy it. Her most famous book I would say is probably The Housemaid, and there is a companion novel to it, The Housemaid's Secret. I read those and loved them and decided to pick up a few of her other books just to have for those occasions where I don't know what I feel like reading. It is a very interesting premise, but basically our main character is working as a nurse in a high security men's prison. That's all I'm gonna say because I feel like if I try to explain it, I might give away spoilers. I really did enjoy reading this book. I had fun while I was reading it, and I will say the whole time I'm sitting there thinking I've already guessed the plot twist, and I get frustrated when that happens, and I'm like, I already know what the plot twist is, but it was so easy to read that I just kept going. I was totally wrong about the plot twist. There was like 10 more plot twists in like the last 100 pages that completely blew my mind. This isn't like a book that I would consider to be a favorite or anything, but it was a fun read. It was an easy read. It was entertaining. And for that, I think I would give it maybe like 3.5 stars. Like I said, great plot twist, super thrilling. If you love thrillers or you're wanting to get into the thriller genre, I feel like Frida would be a good place to start just because nothing is ever overly complicated. And yeah, you just fly through it. Next, I read the book that I said is hard to classify what genre it's in, and that is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. This book and this whole Magnolia Parks universe has blown up on the internet, and I did read the first Magnolia Parks book, and honestly, was not a big fan. Like, it wasn't bad to me, but I just did not understand all the hype. I went ahead and started reading this, and right off the bat, I think I already enjoyed Daisy's character more than Magnolia in the first book. Don't come at me for saying that. I know so many people love Magnolia and BJ, but right off the bat, I loved Daisy, and I loved that we get 3 characters' perspectives in this instead of just the 2 in like the relationship. I also did go back and forth between reading it and doing the audio listen, and I absolutely loved the audio listen because they all had British accents, and this is taking place in London, and so when I read it, I'm not reading it in British accents, I'm reading it in an American accent because that's what the voice in my head is. So getting to actually hear the story being told in British accents like made it feel so much more immersive. And there was also a whole cast of voice actors for this, so there was someone different for Daisy, Julian, and Christian, which once again really helped me feel immersed in the world, and I just felt more emotionally invested in this one. To me, it did still drag at parts. Like, I wouldn't call this a favorite by any means, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than Magnolia Parks, and the ending actually hit me pretty hard, and by the time I finished it, I was like, oh dang, I like that a lot more than I thought I did. So for that, I gave it a 4 stars. I am going to continue into the rest of the series just to see what I think, but I probably will be doing audio listens because that made the biggest difference. When I was reading this, like, I instantly became more connected to the story. If you're like me and you did not care for the first book at all, give this one a chance because I think you'll like it. Another thing I liked about this one compared to the first one, it had romance. Like, it was still drama and romance, but there was also action going on. It added almost like a mystery thriller element to it, which I really enjoyed. So really, this book is kind of just a total mashup of all genres, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I need to prepare myself for my review of my last book. The last book I read that is adult fantasy romance is Crescent City 3 House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. I'm gonna say right now, I will not be saying any spoilers in this video, so if you haven't read this yet, you're free to keep listening. But if you do want to hear spoilers, I will be posting a full Crescent City 3 reading vlog, opinions, theories, like everything Crescent City you can think of and Sarah J. Maas you can think of will be in that video. I'm not sure when it's gonna be up, but just go ahead and subscribe and turn my notifications on and it'll alert you when it comes out, but it should be very soon. I'm already working on editing it. I get all my reactions on camera, so should be a really good video. So if you are interested in hearing like more about this past just what my vague review is gonna be in this video, definitely make sure to be on the lookout for that video when it comes out. Now, I will say, and again, not gonna say any spoilers, I will say going into this, I had already read all of Sarah J. Maas's other books. I was a huge fan, like mega obsessed, love her books, love her characters, and I had been seeing that so many people had gotten their hands on a copy of this early and were already posting spoiler-free reviews, and I was seeing that a lot of people were saying this book let them down or that they were disappointed. And I'm not going to explain why I disagree, but I totally disagree. I loved this book. Once again, if you want to hear my full opinions on why I totally disagree with the people who are saying that, it will be in the Crescent City reading vlog video when that comes out. But I can't really explain what this is about because I'm not doing spoilers, and there's literally no way to explain what this is about without at least giving spoilers for the first 2 books in the series. But this was like my most anticipated read since February of 2022 when I read the second Crescent City book, and I waited almost 2 full years for this book to come out. I got it the day of. I told myself I was going to read it slow because I didn't want to rush through it. I wanted to take my time and enjoy it because we don't know when we're getting another Sarah J Maas book. And I ended up reading, I think, 600 pages on the first day I had it, and then I finished it the next morning. And wow, I mean, in my opinion, this is some of her best writing. The way her brain works and even the little details she includes that pieces things together, I don't understand it. She's truly a mastermind. And in my opinion, this one was actually more enjoyable to read compared to the first 2 books. I would say it was less heavy on the romance and more heavy on the politics and action, but it was written in a way that just flowed so well and kept me so invested the entire time. But I mean, this was just written so wonderfully that even though it was such a long book, I was constantly turning the page wanting to find out more. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. This was amazing. This was a masterpiece. I am obsessed. It tore me apart and put me back together. This book was perfection. Obviously, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I wish I could say more about it right now, but I can't because I don't want to spoil people. But yes, loved this book. Favorite book of the month, and probably will be one of my favorite books of the entire year. Thank you so much for watching my January reading wrap-up. Be sure to stay tuned for February's reading wrap-up at the end of this month. Be on the lookout for my Crescent City 3 video, and also check out my February TBR video because it's the first time I tried to do the TBR jar, and I got some really interesting picks and really cool prompts out of it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. It would really, really help me out. And I also will have my TikTok and Instagram linked in the description if you want to go follow me over on there. I especially post a lot of book-related content on TikTok. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.